In William Golding's Lord of the Flies, the descent from civilization into savagery is portrayed through a group of British boys stranded on a deserted island. Each character reflects different aspects of human nature and societal structure, and among them, Roger emerges as one of the most chilling figures. Unlike the charismatic Jack or the rational Piggy, Roger is quiet, lurking, and ultimately embodies pure, unrestrained cruelty. His development from a silent observer to a sadistic executioner encapsulates the novel's darkest themes about violence, morality, and the thin veneer of civilization. Role in the narrative. Roger is not immediately prominent in the early chapters of Lord of the Flies, but his gradual emergence as a symbol of brutality parallels the group's descent into savagery. Initially, Roger seems reserved and withdrawn, often operating in the background. However, his latent violent tendencies begin to surface when he throws stones at one of the younger boys, Henry, but deliberately misses. Golding notes that Roger is conditioned by a civilization that knew nothing of him and was in ruins, suggesting that Roger's impulses are being held in check only by the residual effects of societal norms. As the island's society deteriorates, so does Roger's restraint. He becomes closely aligned with Jack and his tribe, embracing the hunter's anarchic lifestyle. But unlike Jack, who seeks power and leadership, Roger seems to derive pleasure from pain and destruction for its own sake. His most significant and horrifying act comes in Chapter 11, when he deliberately kills Piggy by rolling a boulder onto him. This is no accident or heat-of-the-moment decision. It is calculated and remorseless. By the final chapter, Roger has evolved into Jack's right-hand man and chief enforcer, a role that is more violent and feared than respected. His cruelty escalates to the point where even Jack appears slightly wary of him. When Roger sharpens a stick at both ends, intended for Ralph, it is a chilling echo of the earlier impalement of the sow's head, symbolizing his complete moral breakdown. At this point, Roger represents the final, irreversible transformation from civilized boy to sadistic killer. Symbolic significance. Symbolically, Roger represents the darkest aspects of human nature, particularly sadism and the capacity for evil when unchecked by laws or conscience. Where characters like Ralph stand for order and leadership, and Piggy for logic and intellect, Roger stands for brutality, amorality, and the human capacity for destruction. He does not seek leadership or social cohesion. His desire is purely to inflict pain. In psychoanalytic terms, Roger aligns closely with the ID, the primitive part of the psyche that seeks immediate gratification of instincts, particularly aggressive and destructive ones. Early in the novel, his behaviors are subdued by the lingering effects of societal norms. But as those norms erode on the island, Roger becomes increasingly uninhibited, culminating in acts of outright murder. Roger is also symbolic of the failure of civilization to reach or redeem everyone. Golding presents the idea that for some individuals, the moral codes of society are merely external constraints rather than internal values. Roger's moral emptiness suggests that civilization may not civilize everyone, and that under the right or wrong conditions, some people will embrace violence without remorse. In a broader literary sense, Roger is a kind of executioner figure, akin to the dark enforcers of tyrannical regimes. He does not challenge Jack's authority. He enforces it with escalating violence. His character foreshadows the dangers of power wielded by those who enjoy cruelty, mainly when a failing system legitimizes such power. Broader implications. Roger's character carries profound psychological, moral, and societal implications. One of the most disturbing aspects of his development is that he is not driven by hunger, fear, or even the need for power. Instead, his violence is pleasure-driven, which makes him a representation of what can happen when internal moral codes are absent. This distinguishes him from Jack, whose descent is political and tribal. Roger's is nihilistic. On a psychological level, Roger raises troubling questions about inborn tendencies toward cruelty. Is Roger simply a product of the island's lawlessness? Or did he always harbor such sadistic impulses, only waiting for an opportunity to act without consequences? Golding seems to lean toward the latter, suggesting that evil lies dormant within many people and needs only the removal of external constraints to flourish. From a societal perspective, Roger is a warning about individuals who thrive in authoritarian systems. He represents the kind of person who becomes a willing and eager tool of tyranny, enforcing cruel policies not out of belief or loyalty, but out of personal enjoyment. His transformation shows how violence can become normalized and ritualized in specific environments, especially when systems of justice and accountability collapse. In the historical context of post-World War II, when Golding wrote the novel, Roger may also be read as an allegorical figure representing those who commit atrocities under totalitarian regimes, the SS guards, the secret police, the torturers. He does not need ideology to kill. He needs only permission and opportunity. In this way, Roger is a chilling reminder of how easily violence can become systemic when individuals abandon empathy and societies fail to maintain moral order. Roger's sharpening of the stick at both ends in the final chapter encapsulates his complete moral disintegration. It implies not just the intention to kill Ralph, but to desecrate his body, echoing the earlier impalement of the pig's head. It is a symbol of dehumanization, both of the victim and the perpetrator. Roger has, by this point, become the true beast on the island, not the imagined monster the boys feared, but a tangible manifestation of inhuman cruelty. Conclusion. Roger is one of the most terrifying characters in Lord of the Flies, not because he is loud or power-hungry, but because he is silent, remorseless, and cruel without purpose. His narrative arc traces the chilling path from social inhibition to unrestrained violence, and his symbolic role represents the darkness that can lie dormant within human beings, awaiting only the collapse of structure and morality to emerge. Through Roger, Golding explores the corrosive power of unchecked aggression, the fragility of civilization, and the ease with which individuals can slip into savagery when external rules no longer apply. His deathless end, he survives to the novel's conclusion, is a reminder that evil does not always receive punishment, and that some of the darkest figures may live on, hidden behind civilized faces. In the moral landscape of Lord of the Flies, Roger stands as a stark embodiment of pure, destructive evil, a character whose silence is more terrifying than words, and whose actions speak to the darkest truths about the human psyche.